Okay, right. So welcome. This is our Empathy Cafe, and I'm Edwin Rutch from the Empathy Circle work group. And this topic today is how might we design, develop, implement empathic direct actions. So let me just bring up our list here. And so our agenda, we're going to do a quick check-in with each other. And then I'll give a bit of an overview of the topic. And then I'll do a check on how familiar everyone is with empathic listening with the process. If everyone feels comfortable with it, we can skip the how-to empathy circle. But so we'll check that. Then we'll try to get into the empathy groups as soon as possible. And we're going to be going for 2 hours, and there's an overtime of 30 minutes for anyone that would like to stay a bit longer for sort of doing the debrief. And then after we do the breakout rooms, we'll come back into this full group here and then do sort of a debrief of what we came. We might have, it might even do just one circle. It's a little, we're kind of like right at the borderline. So anyway, so let's see, check-ins. Bill, do you want to call on people again? And
sure.
It's just your name, where you're located, and if you are part of XR, you know, what group you're part of.
Great. Okay. All right. Roan, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Reverend Roan Fairgrove, San Jose, California, XR South Bay.
Great. Thank you. Carolina?
Karolina Kubiak. I'm calling from Poland, Central Europe. I am a member of local XR group, but also I am a member of IST region, International Support Team, and Empathy Circle team as well. Thank you.
Okay. James?
Hi, James Green. I'm in Syracuse, New York. I am unaffiliated with an XR group, and that's it.
Great, thanks. Grace? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm just going to be observing, so I'll just stay quiet. And
okay. Thanks. All right, Michael? Michael's you're muted, and we can't see you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure, that's okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
Now we can hear you, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Michael Furlong from Chicago, Illinois, and currently unaffiliated, but saw this on Facebook and wanted to check it out and learn more.
Great, great. Glad to have you, Michael. Laura.
Hey, this is Laura Panda. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I'm affiliated with XR Richmond, and I'm part of the Regenerative Culture Working Group for them.
Great, thanks. Okay, my name is Bill Filler. I'm a Empathy team member. I've been taking some XR facilitation trainings and sort of educating myself. Edwin.
Yeah, and I'm also in the San Francisco Bay Area and part of the San Francisco XR group. So let me share my screen here just to give an overview of what our topic is. And there we go. So this is in the shared Google Doc. We're looking at how do we design empathic direct actions? And this is a little bit different than nonviolent direct action, but sort of along the same lines. The idea is to overcome polarization, you know, and support constructive dialogue between people, and so they can talk about climate change. So we need to be able to bring the left and right and, you know, all parts of society together. And so we wanted to design actions that bring people together to kind of work together, because there is so much polarization in the country and the world. We also want to be able to show that XR listens and is able to facilitate constructive dialogue, because a lot of the XR actions are somewhat polarizing. You know, it's disrupting people's lives, and you know, can we show that the XR listens, and can we offer listening to the public and to our fellow activists? And you know, we want to be able to offer constructive dialogue with the public and actually do these empathy circles, which we're going to be practicing today, and do that with the public and with fellow activists. And also another aspect, and we're just designing, thinking about this as a concept in general, is can we do actions where we demand that politicians and CEOs and people in power take part in empathic circles and empathic dialogues on two topics, at least, on climate change as well as how to bridge the divide. And we're trying to spread a regenerative and empathic way of being. So here in this circle, we're going to be talking about, you know, what's the feasibility of this? You know, what are the principles behind such an action? What would it look like? And how do we implement this? And this is on page 1, 2 of our document. You'll be able to see it there. And I wanted to just share us. Yep, Carolina.
We have a new participant, Zipadasurk. Can you introduce yourself shortly? What is your name and where are you calling from? I'm afraid the microphone doesn't work for Zipadasurk, so let's continue maybe later on.
And yeah, you can try to get that working, and or type in the chat window too, or perhaps just wanting to observe. So I'm going to just show a sample of some event just really quickly here. This was at Oakland in California, and it was a sort of a I think, you know, it was when Trump was elected. We set up this empathy tent there and offered listening, and we had like 10 or 12 listeners. We worked together with this group, Sidewalk Talk, that does free listening on the streets. So we had the, you know, the listeners here, and then the public could come by and talk, and we would do empathic listening with them. So this was just a little bit of an example of what an event like this could look like. You know, we had like a table for you know, kids, and even had the kids, you know, stopping by to be heard. And, you know, we've got a couple of, we have a few of these tents, and Carolina just got one for Poland. So just wanted to give a little bit of a flavor of, you know, what something like this empathic direct action could look like. So I'm a little not sure. I think maybe we'll just do one circle since we have a couple of people who are just watching. What do you think about that, Carolina and Bill? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
we have active people, 6 active people.
Yeah.
Because Zipadasurk can't speak. I don't see the mic icon on his.
Yeah. So let's just do one group, and if we need to, we can divide into a second one later. So who's familiar with the empathy circle? I know James and Rowan. So just in very brief, for any of the others watching this, is one person is going to be the speaker, the active speaker, or the speaker, and they're going to select who they speak to, who's going to be the active listener. You'll speak a little bit and with an idea or two, and then pause and let the listener reflect back their understanding, and then you can say some more. We're going to have like 5-minute turns. And the best way is just to learn, you know, just by observing. So we'll just start doing it, and you kind of learn by just observing. And hopefully you watch the how-to video. So I think we're ready to go. Just, Bill, do you want to do the facilitation and timekeeping? And we'll just get started.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Edwin. Are we going for 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I know that James, I guess Rowan, Edwin, and Carolina and I have experience. So it's good to start with maybe one of us. We can model it for you if you're not quite sure. And who would like to start speaking? And Laura, I know this, you might be new. If you feel comfortable, I welcome you to start speaking. And also Michael, since you have a limited amount of time, you might want to start speaking and then just feel how it is to be reflected. So either.
Okay.
Okay, great, Michael. All right, who do you want to speak to?
Oh, I guess yourself. You're on my screen now.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, I'll be happy to reflect you. All right, go ahead, Michael.
Sure. So one of the things I've been thinking about lately with empathy and you know, how difficult it is to generate and hold on to over a long period of time is we're very numb, like as a society, and often it feels very difficult to hold all the information that we're bombarded with. And so I was trying to go to different authentic relating movements, events, to feel more in touch with myself. And it was good to try, but it was also challenging, of course. And I think if we could somehow have events where you were in touch with your body, or like the video that was shown, where you were in the same presence with someone, similar to how we are now over this media, but that could slowly help people trust each other enough to collaborate, you know, on large controversial projects.
Okay, Michael, I'm going to ask you to stop because that's quite a bit. So I want to keep it straight. Okay.
No problem.
Great.
No problem.
So you've been really considering empathy, and you've also contrasting with your understanding of empathy is the sort of numbness that you find in society. And so you've been looking for authentic movements that really express empathy and you know, that express empathy and have meaning for you, and also what you think, you know, the people around you, with society as a whole. Did I miss anything there? That was quite a bit. You feel free.
No, it's great. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, keep on going.
For being here.
Sure, you still have time. Go ahead.
Oh, I do. Okay.
Yeah.
Well then, yeah, I think I'm just gonna try, you know, every day to do a little something to be more empathic, whether it's, you know, an interaction with one person, stranger on the street, or at work, or you know, with family and friends. And I hope that builds and accumulates and gives me more skill or capacity. And then I hope that leads to me being of service, either with Extinction Rebellion or other organizations that all have a similar goal. I mean, there are many in Chicago, Sunrise, and all these different groups working towards a similar vision, you know, of a better, more habitable world and society. And
okay, I'm going to ask to stop there, and because I have a kind of like a theme here, so I'm going to jump on it if you don't mind. And
sure.
so sure. So basically, you're really trying to find your way back to empathy, and really you're starting with yourself and trying to be empathetic, or you know, personally with people. Try to be mindful of that and try to continue doing that. And then you want to join with other groups and stuff that have basically do what you're doing on a personal level on a larger scale that you feel is authentic to you, but then because of more people feels more effective. Did I get that?
You got it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. You still have a minute. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Feels like I'm talking too much, but
No, that's
yeah,
okay.
I think I guess my final thought would be in the Chicago area where I am now, we're very sheltered from everything that's going on in the world. You know, we're in the center of the country. We have a lot more the illusion of stability, you know, and so I think it's a much slower pace here as far as trying to get, you know, large scale change, and it's much easier to not change. And so I've been trying to strategize for myself how to make change in my own life and in collaboration with people sustainable, and not feel like a self-destructive act or you know, a burden that isn't surmountable. And so that's what I hoped when I called in, that people would have ideas or thoughts, and that it could be, you know, generative in that way. And yeah, I really thank everyone for being on the call.
Okay, excuse me. By the way, when you hear that, that's sort of time, but it's a soft close. Okay, and it sounds like you came, did you come to a close, Mike? It seems like.
Oh,
Michael?
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That was good.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'll give you the reflection. And again, I see this evolution of really trying to find empathy within yourself and through what you're doing. You feel in Chicago, you're somewhat isolated, and feels like the geography is almost like an insulating layer, and that people aren't really very aware of what's going on, and that you're looking for a way to basically give yourself the experience of connecting with others and helping them to understand what's going on in a more meaningful way. Did I miss anything?
No, that was lovely.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. Okay. All right. Okay, Carolina, would you listen to me? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to Rowan yet. I'm sorry. Nothing personal.
Okay.
Rowan, would you? I haven't talked to you.
So this is the moment of turn. The active listener becomes speaker and chooses a new active listener. Okay.
Yep.
Just for the explanation.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you, Rowan.
Sure.
Okay. So it was interesting. I've been thinking about holacracy and hierarchy and how that sort of gets sorted out in the terms of XR. So I'll stop there.
So you've been thinking about how in XR hierarchy is working, and I'm not sure what holacracy means.
Oh, sure. So basically in the XR, as in the trainings and things that I've been exposed to, XR tries to, instead of a hierarchy, they promote a holacracy. And it's also called the flat pack democracy, flat pack. And I forgot the gentleman's name in England who developed that, but he has a book or something. And so essentially it's about how do we organize without the usual territorial disputes, for lack of a better word. I'll stop there.
Okay, so you're trying to think how using this flat, non-hierarchical system, XR can perhaps avoid some of the regional disputes and other hazards of being a large organization?
Yeah, not in XR. It's more of a rhetorical, philosophical question. I don't think, I mean, XR is dealing with it, but it's sort of in the background. Anyway, but in thinking about that, because I've thought about this action for a while, and so I have an idea, and it's very fleshed out. And then I thought, as I came to this call, I'm saying, okay, so if I go and I say that, do people interpret it as like, oh, that's the way it's got to be? Because I don't feel that way. But on the other hand, to be authentic, I have well-developed ideas. Maybe they're not so well-baked as I think, and that's good to share about. But so I'm kind of like thinking about trying to, yeah, I see this, I know it, and I'm feeling, creative. But on the other hand, that can be overbearing. So I'm kind of fighting with those things internally. I'll stop there.
Okay, so you're working on your own process, and you have some great ideas that you want to share, but you're afraid that by bringing such fully formed ideas, you might be taking over instead of offering collaboration.
Yeah, that, or it might be seen that way. In my mind, I'm always collaborating. You can reflect that.
Okay. So I must have missed something.
No, just in my mind, I'm always
You're always
collaborating.
collaborating. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that's the sort of humor I'd like to see, sort of a self-deprecating humor and a humor about ourselves. We're all flawed, and the challenge that faces us is great. And quite frankly, we're all going to have to improve. So let's do it with mutual support and humor. I'll stop there.
Okay. So you'd like to us to have a self-deprecating humor that allows us to make fun of ourselves, to engage in ways where we're not being overbearing or humorless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that goes to the blaming and shaming of XR. You know, I'm not a big fan of that because I'm too flawed. I'll stop there.
Okay. Because of your philosophy, you're having trouble with XR because there's blaming and shaming happening in your area?
Oh, no, not at all. No, that's why I agree with the principle of no blaming and shaming, or the tactic of XR.
Okay.
Because if I look in the mirror, there's a lot to criticize.
Okay. So I hear you saying that you appreciate the no blaming and shaming plank of XR,
right?
Because you feel like we're all flawed, including yourself.
Right. And if I could declare a worldwide holiday, it would be the cutting of the slack. And I'm done.
Okay, a worldwide holiday for the cutting of the slack.
Thank you, Rowan. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. James, would you be my listener? So I'm interested in how to incorporate empathic listening into our actions. And on the last Sunday of the month, so just Sunday, my XR branch has a pray in, meditate in, where we basically go with signs, and we have a marshal who's handing out flyers, but we're basically there, each of us praying or meditating for the health of the planet, for the end of the climate crisis with our signs and stuff. And
so yeah,
go ahead.
Your XR group has an event at the last Sunday of every month for a pray-in, where you bring signs and pray together about the health of the planet.
And it seems like incorporating, maybe after the pray-in, a listening session, because we're there and we're by then all totally sort of tuned in, that I think we would be really good empathic listeners. And so that has been something that, and I've brought it up to my folks, and they're like, oh, I haven't heard of these. And they went and watched the video. So thank you very much for having the good videos, and said that they had seen an empathy tent at some recent oily wells or chase event or something, and are all excited about bringing it to San Jose.
So you had made a suggestion to your group that after the pray-ins, it might be a good time to do the listen-in, because people would be in a place of receptivity, and your group in San Jose had people had not heard of that, so it was useful to have the videos to present to them. They watched it, and then they got an idea of it, and had even recalled seeing the empathy tent at some actions.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of excited that I'm getting buy-in, having done one previous empathy cafe with you guys, so I'm just letting you know too that I think this is a great venue for sharing it, and at least in my case, I'm hopefully sharing it in my XR among my XR compatriots.
You're feeling excitement about the prospects, and you think it's a good thing to be doing this. It's a good venue to be practicing empathy.
I do, and so I think that's a fine round one. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
All right. So I'm just wondering, Grace, are you in this? No, Grace was just listening. So, Edwin, would you listen to me?
Mm-hmm. Listening.
Thanks. So again, this is not part of the culture, maybe of what we do, but I'm gonna do it anyway, which is I'm gonna kind of ask for the group's permission to bring in a difference. I just have a sense that I'm bringing in a difference, so I'm gonna do that. And Edwin, I guess I'm anxious about doing that. I'm anxious about Carolina taking what I say personally, and I don't, maybe that's a negative prediction, but I have been sitting with frustration since the last time we talked, and I want to bring that to the surface.
Hey, can I just reflect that? So you're sitting with some frustration that you'd like to bring to the surface, and you're wanting to sort of bring some changes, and you also had some concerns about Carolina, that how she might take it, or?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So last time when I demoed the empathy process, at the end of doing that, Carolina made a comment that the process something, I think she said something like the process favors alpha males for taking over, or yeah, something to that effect. And it happened at the end of my time, so I wanted to respect the time, and I didn't want to address it. I thought I'll just kind of sit on it, but I was, I guess I'm curious about why that, what about the process that I was introducing gave that impression?
Okay, so at the facilitators group, you introduced a process, and then one of the reactions, you asked for feedback about it. One of the feedbacks from Carolina was that the process favored alpha males, and you're like wondering, yeah, why, in what way? And you didn't have time to really go into it because you're respecting the time frame, but you're kind of wanting to bring that up and sounds like address it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I was also taking it personally. I guess I heard that criticism. I read into that criticism as being saying something about me personally, something like, of course you're going to want to do a process like this because you're an alpha male and you're going to benefit from doing it, and something like that. And yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like that idea. Obviously, I'm saying that I was reading more into that because that wasn't said explicitly.
Yeah, so you felt it was like a criticism of you, and it was like, and you're kind of seeing it. Well, maybe you read into it the criticism that was a criticism of you, and you didn't like the way it was said, but you do have a sense that maybe it was just sort of your interpretation. Or... personal interpretation.
Yeah, thank you.
It sounds like you want to sort of address it and explore this more.
Yes,
Get
absolutely.
some
That's
clarity.
yeah,
For you,
yeah.
like some clarity about it.
So I recognize that the way to address it is to explore it in this way. There's a part of me that wants to, I don't know how to say this, but just, attack back, retaliate, to that perceived attack on me. And so I'm finding navigating my way to doing something different.
Yeah, so you're saying you felt that was attack on you, and sort of your response would be to kind of attack back, and you're just sort of noticing that and sort of sharing that. And
yes, thank you, Edwin.
Okay, thanks. Then I'll speak to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, so just to quickly address what James was mentioning, I think that the process he was showing was, one person speaks and then anyone responds. And I think the thing that you were speaking to, which I also see, is that it's going to be the more assertive people that respond, because it's kind of put out to the whole group to respond. So the more assertive people are going to be the ones that respond in that process, was kind of something I noticed.
So you mean that you referring to what James just said, and you interpreting the process he demonstrated to us, that it kind of led people who are more, I don't know how to say, responsive.
Assertive. I just say assertive, that they'll just
more assertive, it makes easier for them to respond than for others.
So if you're kind of a quiet person, you might not jump in and respond. So that's just one dynamic of the process. It's kind of a neutral. It's just like that's something that could happen in that process.
Yeah, so you describing it more that if a person is more kind of shy, quiet, it might be difficult for such person to respond and to participate in this method James proposed.
And what we're doing here, I think, is more inclusive in that everybody gets sort of selected, and you don't have to like insert yourself, because you're just going to get selected. So it kind of is a bit more inclusive for the introverts. I find introverts really love this process because they don't have to sort of assert themselves.
So you think that the process you're proposing is more inclusive because it doesn't put people who are more introverted in a situation when they have to force themselves to participate. It helps them to participate in the way they are simply selected.
Yeah, so every process has its different dynamics, its advantages and disadvantages. So I think it's not, it could be really a good process. Maybe it has other benefits. So, I just kind of want to, yeah.
So you think that every process might have advantages and disadvantages, and depends on what we value, what is important.
Yeah, so, and the other thing is, it's the same thing with direct action, is there's going to be advantages and disadvantages of every process. So here, the XR group in San Francisco Bay group has been going to chase Manhattan banks and doing actions there, and they have a whole bunch of scheduled. And what I would like to see with those actions is the empathic part is to invite like the president or CEO of the bank into an empathy circle. So part of the action is, we would like to have an empathic dialogue with you as the CEO or whatever of the local bank. So, yeah.
So you make parallel, and you're saying that this is similar situation to NVDA and empathic direct action, and you referring to the. I hope my connection. You hear
It's
me
good.
well.
It's excellent. Yeah.
Okay, because my connection shows that it's unstable. So you not mentioned about some actions that are prepared in your area about confronting some banks, companies, and you would like to see as a part of those actions an empathy circle when you invite CEOs or presidents of the banks to the empathy circle and you make the conversation with them, mutual conversation. That's
In an
important.
empathy circle, like we're
In
doing
an
here.
empathy,
Yeah.
in an empathy circle, mutual conversation with those people.
And I'm imagining it for Berkeley, downtown Berkeley. And not only do we invite the CEO, but also the mayor and the city council. So that's part of the action is we want to have an empathic dialogue so that and they're recorded. So we sort of spread empathic dialogue and mindset throughout the culture. So.
And you don't mean just CEOs of managers, business managers. You also mean politicians like mayor or other politicians to kind of organize that and to sit down together and talk in empathy circle format.
Yeah, and I see that here in El Cerrito, where I live, in Berkeley, and then we go to Richmond, and then we go to Oakland, and then we go to San Jose and San Francisco.
So you want to make a kind of pilgrimage from one place to another place and do the same thing in many places. So you spread this way this idea of empathic direct action.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm confused. I don't know whom I can choose because who can speak? Grace and Zipedasark doesn't speak, as I understand.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
Michael might be able to.
Oh, Michael. Okay, I unmute Michael. Michael, can you reflect me back?
Okay. Sure, let me
Okay.
walk to a stairwell, which was cleverly designed to allow me to do this.
I didn't hear you properly.
These.
I'm just moving somewhere where I can reflect back, without
Okay.
being distracted
Okay,
by
I
anything.
have to warn you that I'm not native speaker. It's not easy for me to understand English, so be merciful with me.
For sure, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so probably I should react to James' fragment when James was talking about the problem he faced. Well, I would prefer to talk about it in our facilitators meetings, or because I don't want to waste time of this meeting for this issue, but I will refer to that anyway. I stop there.
Okay, so yeah, you don't want to bring it up in the wrong environment, but since it did come up, or maybe an inappropriate environment, but since it did come up, you want to bring it up.
Yeah, maybe it's not the appropriate environment because there is the rule you can speak whatever you want to speak, but I would like to not waste time of this meeting for this topic. But well, actually, I believe that method that actually Edwin explained very well what I meant by alpha male promoting alpha male personalities during the dialogue. That's exactly what I meant. So Edwin
Cool.
explained for me it already.
Do you feel he represented your position and understanding really well, and you don't feel like you need to add more?
Yeah. But what I think this method is actually very good for is this method force everyone to be active listener all the time. During our circles, it might happen that we lose focusing on what somebody speaks because we are not active listener. It's easier to be deconcentrated. And I like to observe this ability, my ability to be focused on somebody's or not. I actually admire this feature, but I understand that in methods James prefers, it will be the situation when everybody has to be focused if the person wants to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you feel like this is a good experience or opportunity to flex your muscle of active listening and perceiving, and you really enjoy and delight in that practice. And you kind of understand that at some point that might be uncomfortable for some participants, or there might be instances where it doesn't go smooth, but you still think it's a very worthwhile experience, no matter how awkward moments might develop.
Well, actually, it wasn't what I said. I didn't
Oh, I'm sorry.
enjoy this this demonstration because I felt I didn't really enjoy the demonstration, but I appreciate the method. I see the advantage, one of the advantages of the method, and I wanted to admit that I see it. Yeah.
Okay. So you disliked it, or it didn't feel good, but you can also like intellectually appreciate what occurred.
Yes, yes, that's what I meant. And I don't know how much time I have.
46 seconds.
So maybe I will stop there and wait for the next round to speak about something else. Thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Well, thank you for working with me too. I appreciated everything you said. Thank you.
Okay. So Michael, can you see us?
I had to go into the
Right. But
the hidden realm.
Okay. So we want to be respectful of your situation there. It's your turn to speak, and you can pick someone. But I don't know if you can see us or not. So if not, I can name some names, and then you can pick one and you can speak to them if you can. Depending
very
on
good.
your situation.
Well, would you want to just go in the same order again, or should I pick a new person?
Well, let's try. We'd like to
matter?
try to mix it up and make sure we get everybody.
Okay.
So let me.
Well, then why don't you can select someone for me if you want, random, or I don't know if you have a random generator.
Oh, I'll name off some names and you can just pick one. And so there's Rowan here, Edwin, James, and Carolina.
Okay. Let's try Edwin.
Okay, listening.
Edwin. Cool. Thanks so much again, everyone, for the opportunity and for accommodating my weird situation.
I'm hearing some real gratitude from you that we're all accommodating your strange, weird situation.
Yes. And I think that it's always difficult with, folks you don't know to try and, especially over the vast distance of technology and all the barriers in daily life, to have rapport or like even temporary collaboration. And I think even though it's difficult or not always successful, the more I try it myself, the more likely I'll get into a rhythm of being good at it or competent. And so I think as far as empathy and the topic of the day, I've been going to school for sustainable design, and I've been one of the assignments from class was to go to a lot of different meetups and things around the city to understand, you know, the relationships in your city regarding sustainability. And each place that I go and group of people I interact with have their own temperament and worldview, not always compatible with either my own or with the one I went to the previous time. And so it's been really informative about how much distance there is between us because of, you know, all the systems we all live under. But then also that those systems are not foolproof and in keeping us separate. And there's a lot of opportunity to be outside of your comfort zone and then, you know, have a relation that's positive and maybe contributes or helps someone even in a small way.
Can I reflect that back?
Please.
So what I'm hearing is that you're studying design, restorative design, is that?
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah,
regenerative design. And part of that is you go to a lot of, your assignment is to go to a lot of different groups, and you're just seeing that there's a lot of difference in the groups, but a lot of similarities as well. And that,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yep.
Is that the essence?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think about, you know, which place should I eventually land in, and, you know, what should my contribution be, and what ultimately is a goal that I could achieve, you know, in my limited agency, because, you know, XR and many other organizations have very like expansive, you know, system-wide changes, which can feel overwhelming to set those type of goals. But when it's more, you know, sit down at this empathic circle and participate, that's something I could achieve, you know. And I've been thinking about how I could make goals for myself that would be, you know, small and accomplishable, and that could accumulate, you know, over time.
So it sounds like you're really looking at where you should be putting your energy, and you see that, you know, XR has these really large goals, and that the empathy circle is something sort of manageable and that you could do over time, sort of apply yourself to, or propose.
Yeah, just trying to understand the boundaries of, you know, empathy and participation, and how to make a big impact with a manageable use of energy.
So you're really looking at how you can have a large impact with, you know, just within the resources and the energy that you have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it would be very easy, I think. I notice in my own life, just with managing my own life, you know, how easy it is to burn out or feel frustrated or feel lost or feel uncertain. So.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're just aware that it's easy to get burned out and get frustrated, and so you're just wanting to do something with your energy that's manageable and also has an impact. And so it sounds like you're searching for what that is.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel really heard, and again, thanks to everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. See, I'll speak to Rowan then.
I'm ready to listen.
Yeah, wow. Let's see what I'm thinking about the actions. You know, I had difficulty connecting with SF, XR, XF, and I just started going to some meetings and starting to get building better relationships with them. So I'm kind of excited about that.
So I hear you saying that you have been going to San Francisco and beginning to make connections with San Francisco XR, even though your initial reaction was that you didn't feel welcome there?
Exactly. And the big turnaround was there's one person that they set up a series of sort of onboarding or welcoming events. And he's been doing a really good job of it. You know, there's you come in, there's an hour presentation about XR on Zoom, so it's very convenient. Then there's another event online with about XR San Francisco Bay, you know, so it's really the North Bay. And then he does a 30-minute call, personal call, one-to-one, to kind of invite you. So it's just this really nice sort of welcoming, and so it's really made a difference in turn. With XR, I think, and it's just started, so I think it's just brilliant what they're doing.
So I hear you saying that San Francisco XR has a really good onboarding process.
Mm-hmm.
A person has sort of taken it over and made it very structured, and that you felt welcomed by that structure, and you got lots of good information, and also the personal touch of a half-hour call from a single person.
Yeah, and then it's like setting up on Keybase, you know, been invited. So it's just like all the little details, and you know, and he's also creating like a handbook for the, you know, an online handbook, so you can actually see where the groups are. I had no idea what the different affinity groups were. There was no documentation, so it's just this openness and clarity and transparency that really helped me, even to know that there was a meeting like 2 blocks down the street from me, which I didn't even know for, you know, months.
So having an onboarding process and the whole data dump that you've gotten from it has allowed you to engage more closely because there's a meeting that's just down the street.
And I think that his attitude is very empathic. He's really trying to empathize with the needs of people who are kind of onboarding. You know, you kind of just are sensitive to the felt experience that they're going to, and making their experience in, you know, getting in part of the group, you know, easy and accessible. So I think that's a good, you know, promotion of an empathic sort of mindset. And then I went to the meeting, and, you know, we talked about Roger Hallam coming, and they seemed to be interested in empathy circles, you know, with him, you know, and so anyway, it seemed like there was some kind of local connection happening that I was, felt good about.
So you feel good about a local connection that has allowed you to feel that the empathetic methods are respected, because the person who's onboarding you is dialoguing with you in an empathic way, and that when you went to the meeting, they were actually talking about doing an empathy circle with Roger Hallam in his upcoming visit.
Well, I proposed it, and then they were like open to it. It's like, oh, it's not like you had to like battle. Like, it's like you can say something and they won't try to shut you down right away. So yeah, so it was like they were just kind of open. You know, it was a smaller group, so I really appreciated that too.
So you felt heard when you went to the small group, and they listened to the idea of an empathy circle with Roger Hallam.
Yeah, so that felt, so and then kind of how do we build on this empathic direct action, I think is kind of exciting. You know, I can see that there's some openness to those might be some openness to those ideas of, you know, setting up in downtown Berkeley and stuff like that. So I'm kind of looking forward to connecting more with the group and seeing what sort of direct action we can do.
So I hear you being excited about working with the group and being able to do more direct action, including empathetic direct action in downtown Berkeley.
Yeah, and beyond. Come and visit you too. It's not that far. So yeah, so I feel heard. Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I talk to you, Bill?
Be happy to. Listen.
So the other thing I did this weekend, besides, you know, my XR meeting and my XR pray-in, was I did a talk at the Peace and Justice Center on belonging in a time of othering, which I think is sort of another way to create empathy by making people aware of things like the brain science of othering, and engaging in dialogue about how to change othering to belonging.
Okay. So among the other things you did with XR and the prayer and the meditation was a presentation on the politics, or I don't know if I got but belonging versus othering. That's the basically, and how, or in this society, how do you have a sense of belonging versus this othering? That's important. Why don't you correct me?
Okay. So at Berkeley, there used to be something called the Haas Institute, which is now called the Othering and Belonging Institute.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
We have been doing a conference for the last 4 years in Berkeley. This year's conference is going to be in London because they're trying to bring the othering and belonging concept to Europe. But it's something I'm interested in the faith-based social justice that I do. We do belong circles, which are circles of trying to make people feel like they belong.
Okay. So you were saying that the genesis of this Othering Belonging Institute used to be the Haas Institute at Berkeley, and they're going to be taking it to London to introduce this idea of othering and belonging, and that you talked about the brain science behind belonging. And so the circles that you do are belonging circles, which are trying to help people really understand that they are part of something and that they're integral, important.
Actually, the brain science is more about othering than belonging.
Okay.
Your subconscious works much faster than your conscious mind. And so a lot of the processing when you see a person goes on in your subconscious and is informed by the media, by your culture, by all the things that you learned about who that other person is. And the brain science shows that when you see another human being, a certain part of the brain lights up, except that sometimes it doesn't. Like if you see a homeless person or you see someone that you perceive as being very different than yourself, that area of your brain does not light up and see them as fully human.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't mean to. So the brain science has to do with othering. There is brain science about mirror neurons. And I guess that you're saying is that when you see somebody who's labels that subconsciously, these labels slip in and you don't even realize it. And then they activate and they act as a filter before your conscious mind even realizes it. So essentially you discount people before you even give them a chance to find out who they are.
And so one of the things that the Dalai Lama did in this context was ask somebody, what kind of vegetables do you think they like? And that lit up because suddenly they were human. And so one of the things that we were talking about on Friday was what mechanisms can we create in our consciousness to allow us to see other people? And I think in an empathy circle, especially like when you did the empathy circle with the fascists or whatever who came to Berkeley, that being able to see that person as a human being like yourself will allow you to be more empathetic. So I'm seeing it as connected. It's really cool when, you know, sort of the work you're doing is all running together and not pulling you apart.
Okay, so you're drawing a parallel between the work that the Empathy Circle is doing and the process with the Dalai Lama is a technique. He said, well, what kind of vegetables does this person like? And then immediately that kind of pushes away the labels and lets you see the person as a person. And there's a whole other part of your brain that lights up. So you're seeing that also the Empathy Circle in this process does much the same thing.
And that maybe there are mechanisms that we could put in our training that would help us
Continue. Go ahead.
to not other the people who want to talk to us.
Right. And so you're looking for ways to bake into trainings so that people be aware when they're othering people and then work around it and work towards a sense of belonging.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Good. Thanks. That was fun. Thanks. All right, James. Okay. So I'm going to preface this by saying that, this is my vision, but it's just my vision. It's no, for the people watching this or something, it's not set in stone or anything. But nevertheless, I've been thinking about something, so that's authentically mine. And so I'm going to lay it on you right here. My vision for an empathic direct action. I'll stop there.
You have a vision, a
Mhm.
clear vision for empathic direct action. You want people who are listening to know that it's not something that other people have to do, but it's your authentic, clear vision.
Yes, thank you, James. All right, so here it is. I see trees. I see filtered sunlight. I see birds. I'll stop there.
Trees, filtered sunlight, birds.
Yeah, the sound of birds. And what I see in the center would be a listening booth, much like the Edwin showed us. That would be an empathy tent or something very similar. And people would come in for listening. There would then be an array in sort of a semicircle of other small groups that people could join, other kind of listening circles that would both listen to people one-on-one, if that's where they were at, or would take up topics relevant to XR. I'll stop there.
So in the center of this vision, you see a booth where people could go and do empathy, and then a semicircle around that, other groups or stations where people can go and have one-on-one empathy or have topic discussions.
Great. No, thank you. That's great. You're there with me, James. I feel it. All right. And so then in back, as people go through that, then XR could have like a sample people's assembly or citizens assembly. So in other words, as you go deeper into the semicircle, you get deeper into XR if you so choose to. I'll stop there.
So you have a layout that corresponds with this idea that the deeper you go into the physical semicircle, the deeper you are going into the XR mentality or idea with a people's assembly in the back.
Or citizens assembly, yes. Okay, and then to the side, that's not all. Artists, we need artists. This is not going to work without artists. And so on one side, we have theater games, Viola Spolin's theater games, where we do, and what you do in a theater game, it's improvisational, but you're actually communicating a great deal without talking. So I'll stop there.
Another activity available on one side are specifically geared towards raising up artists, giving them a place in the movement, and including theater games and activities that engage empathic relation without words.
Communication, yeah. Yeah, and then on the other side, like a drumming circle, a music circle, where people come in, there's an exercise where people kind of make improvisational and harmonize and then peel off one by one. So a music circle, that's on the other side.
Music circle, drumming on the other side.
Good. Now, we also have contact improvisation, BREEMA, B-R-E-E-M-A. We have dance, we have movement, people relating through movement. I'll stop there.
Another station with BREEMA or contact improvisational groups and dancing groups.
Yeah. And not only that, but then I was a member privileged to be a member of a great writing group, improvisational writing. And our teacher would simply just read a line from a poem, and we have 10 minutes to write whatever we did. And then we just give reflections, no comments, no judgment, much like a kind of writing empathy circle in a way, rough analogy.
Okay, so there's a group that does poetry with incorporating empathy and reflection and creative writing off of like lines in poems.
Right, improvisational writing, yes. And then some nice food.
food.
Thank you, James. I feel fully heard.
All right. Rowan, would you listen to me? Thank you.
But you have to talk for me to listen.
No, I don't actually, but I will talk.
Right.
I appreciate your enthusiasm to hear me. I'm just doing a little self-connection first. So this vision that Bill has presented is, I've lived it. I've lived it at Occupy in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and it was full with the tents and the citizens' assembly and the food and the music and the drumming, and it was all there. And I know each of these could be different, should be different, unique, but I really connect to the vision. I think it's a beautiful vision, and I support it and want to be a part of creating more of them.
So I hear that you resonate with the vision that Bill shared and that you have actually experienced it because of being a member of Occupy, which also had encampments where many things like citizens' assembly and art and music were happening.
Yes. And I also, there's many specific pieces of the vision that Bill shared that did not exist that I would love to see exist, like the theater and the poetry groupings and like dedicated stations for empathy exchange.
So you feel like his idea has things even beyond what Occupy had, like the creation of empathy tents and circles, that would be a good addition to the model that you have in your mind?
Yes. And to take another step, I also resonate with some of the work that you were bringing in, introducing us to when you, Rowan, were sharing about the brain science behind belonging and othering, because I also study that. It has a different name, but it's very similar. It's a lot of the brain science around groups and scapegoating.
So the fact that you have been studying group dynamics, especially scapegoating, gives you an interest in the othering and belonging science and activities.
Yes, very much. And I think there are ways to do what you were suggesting, baking into the circles or the work that we do, in awareness of bringing awareness to how what we're thinking, how we are thinking when we begin to other people or enter into kind of polarizing thinking.
Because you think it's important that we have ways to notice in ourselves when we're beginning to other people or fall into polarized thinking.
Yes, very much. I know specifically, personally, how painful it is to be othered or scapegoated. And I also see how I can participate in it either intentionally or unintentionally, just because it's part of the ways of relating that we are kind of living within.
So you see that within the culture, we have scapegoating as part of our baked in culture. And so you see yourself sometimes participating in it, even though perhaps you'd rather not.
Yes, and I guess for me, a part of that is really, like I said, is about increasing the awareness at a very detailed, in a sense, very technical level about how our thinking works and how these patterns of thinking become self-defeating to ourselves and to our groups. I think there is a lot to learn about that could be useful.
So you think studying the brain science and the scientific way that we look at small group interaction would really help if we understood it better, each of us in our own activities.
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Thank you. So Carolina, may I speak to you?
Yes, I will be
Yeah.
listening.
So I admit that when I heard contact improvisation, I felt very othered as a disabled person. A lot of the activities didn't sound very accessible to me.
So
But go ahead.
So you mean that as a disabled person, you feel like very many situations kind of not favoritize you? I don't know if I use this word properly. Don't giving you chance to be treated, interact. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't drum. The arthritis in my hands is too bad. It hurts. I can't do contact improv. And in fact, I've had really creepy male touching things happen at contact improv groups that didn't make me ever want to do that again when I wasn't in a wheelchair. So I think we also need to be aware of potentials for bad interactions in some of the suggested venues or avenues of bringing people together. But I really do think that we need the music and the different modalities, because people learn in different ways and people connect in different ways. And so I'm conflicted about it, you know.
So you feel some contradictive thought and feelings about certain situations, organizing actions, activities where music or other performances are included, because you might not feel very comfortable with them, and you know that there are people who don't feel comfortable with them, and actually it's closing, not opening activity. But in the same time, you know that for many other people, it might be actually very inclusive. So you feel kind of ambiguous about it. You are not sure what to think about it.
But I will say I have found another wheelie to be my partner as a Red Rebel. And so we're going to figure out choreography that two people in wheelchairs can do in that slow, deliberative way. And South Bay XR is very excited to expand the Red Rebel Brigade with people in wheelchairs. So I'm really excited to be welcomed in that way.
But you discovered a new opportunity to join the Red Rebels being on a wheelchair, and you're thinking with your friend about choreography for wheelchair actors, performers, and you are very excited about this idea.
Yes. Because when I first saw the Red Rebels, I was like, oh, that's what I want to be. And then I realized that there's no way that I could do the current kind of choreography, which is very important, of people being very close together and moving in very slow and deliberative ways. And so I'm excited to explore how to do that as a wheelie.
So you imagining, visualizing the way the Red Rebels teams perform, they behave, they move, and you trying to imagine how to include persons on wheelchair to this performance, how to make it integral.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm wondering if Zepa the Cirque wants to reflect me or speak. Zepa the Cirque, do you hear us? Because I see your microphone is probably functioning. No, there is some kind of problem still. Okay, so maybe I will choose Bill. Bill, would you reflect me back?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay. When I was listening to you, to your vision, I had the image of sort of festival of empathic direct action. And it's great. I thought about empathic direct action in smaller scale, kind of, because I was thinking about the rebellion week, and all the actions that will be performed, and one of those actions will be empathic direct action. That's my vision. How to include empathic direct action into the whole schedule and plan of many different actions that will be performed during the week rebellion. I stopped there.
Okay. So when you heard what I was talking about, you saw that as like a fair or a festival, and it was very large. And your vision of an empathic direct action is a smaller, more contained thing that fits in with the other things that are going on. There's already quite a bit going on those other weeks. And so more focused, smaller action is what you were thinking of.
Well, I don't think that we can't organize a festival. Well, I call it festival. Your vision, I call festival because I have to name it somehow. Maybe it's not the best term, but I don't find in this moment a better name for your vision. We can do that. We want to occupy people with our ideas for a little bit longer than just one action. But I'm also thinking about one sort of empathic direct strike. So there will be performance for hour or 2 hours, just mobilize all the rebels to do just this one thing everywhere on the streets, kind of. So this is not that small one. It's actually the bigger one.
So what you were thinking about is that it would be just as big as terms of the amount of people participating, or as many people, but it would be shorter. Like for 2 hours, everybody would stop and focus on empathic dialogue.
Yeah, let's imagine people everywhere on the street trying to perform empathic dialogue, empathic speaking and empathic listening. Like if we do that, I don't know, in London, people everywhere on the streets suddenly speak and listen to each other. That's amazing to trying to do such thing. yeah, I would like, at least in some parts of the city where the rebellion is happening. It might be a square, it might be few streets, but it would be amazing thing to do that and watch what will gonna happening, how bystanders will react to that.
So you're just thinking about the effect of having a large group of people in a couple of blocks or a square or something like that.
Yeah,
Just really focus on empathic dialogue, and then the effect that it would have on the surrounding people who were not necessarily, XR members.
yeah, and obviously preparation to such action requires a lot of time, and it should be starting right now to prepare for the spring, because we need a lot of people who are familiar with the method and can perform. So it requires a lot of training, a lot of empathy circles with as many people as it possible, so everybody is familiar with that.
Okay. And so what you're seeing is that in order to pull off something like that, we need a lot of focused training, especially if we're going to do it in the spring.
Yeah, and one more thing, I would like to see that in a circles, not in the row like the video Edwin showed with sidewalk talkers. Yes, some sidewalk talkers.
Right. Yes. Sidewalk talk.
I would like to see circles of 4, circles of 5 people, and doing it in circles, still in circles.
Right. So you're saying you'd like to see circles rather than just a line of people.
Yeah. That would be more interesting for me.
Okay.
Thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. All right. Edwin, we have a time, or we're about 12:25. So
I think we can go for another 15,
oh, okay, great.
20
All right.
minutes almost.
All right. So then would you listen to me?
Listening.
So I'm kind of jazzed about this. We can talk about, I would be happy participating in what Carolina talked about, or what I talked about, or what you talked about, Edwin. And I have been, so I'll just say that.
Yeah, you're jazzed about what we're talking about, and you're glad to participate in what any of the ideas are that any of us have come up with, and you actually have been.
Yeah. So and to good effect. I mean, I've enjoyed myself too.
Yeah, having fun with it.
Yes. And I really appreciate Rowan's comments, because I think that's what I can certainly see in maybe contact improvisation, maybe Sufi dancing or something like that, where there's a little bit. And I've also seen, and then for music, you can also use your voice. And there are other ways that you can participate. But that's exactly, I'd love to cooperate or collaborate. I mean, it's early now, but with Rowan, so that I'm really sensitive of those things. And, or someone else who would be willing to do that. So I just think that's really good. That strengthens, you see, Rowan brings another perspective, and that strengthens the idea. That's what I'm jazzed about.
Yeah, you're really appreciating what Rowan was saying, because you see that as being more inclusive, and it strengthens the whole idea, and you really want to learn how you can be inclusive of people. And it makes you feel excited and jazzed and energized. And really,
because that's, I think, the beginning of what we're going to need to do. We're going to all need to improve. We're going to all need to build skills. The challenge that's coming is not, it's going to be great. And so if we just say, oh, I'm just, whatever, what I look like, some label, or I'm this or I'm that, we're losing. We have to grow beyond ourselves. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I have to really get past, sounds like past the stereotypes. We're just kind of stereotyping each other. We got to get past that.
Yes, but not even more than that. And part of that is to see ourselves as growing individuals. In other words, if there's a challenge, I may not be able to, I may not be able to surmount that challenge today, but I'm growing and I'm learning. I might be able to surmount it tomorrow.
So it's sort of a growing mindset that we see that we're all growing, and kind of be supporting that growing mindset of all of us. And even if we have failed, that there's still, we can still pick up the pieces and grow.
And I like Carolina's, vision. I'm not so clear on the logistics or the tactics of just having, a bunch of people swirling around, some people XR, some people not, and then doing that. You'd have to have enough mass of people so that all of a sudden, if they did empathic dialogue, people would notice it. Like if just 2 people in a crowd did it, and there were 100 people around, they wouldn't notice it. So I'm just thinking of tactical things, but I love that energy. I'd love all of a sudden, one of the ideas I had was sort of an empathic designated listener. You'd put on a t-shirt, and if somebody needed listening that day, they could say, hey, you're an empathic designated listener. Would you listen to me for 5 minutes? Sure will. Stop there.
Yeah, you're just feeling a lot of enthusiasm and energy, and like these ideas are sort of bubbling up, like having empathic designated listeners, and you go around and people just offer listening. So it sounds like you're really enjoying the creativity of the possibilities.
And that's what I'd like to end on. I'd like to end on, I'm really having a good time, and I'm enjoying listening to everybody and building the idea.
Yeah, really enjoying the idea and building on the idea, and kind of being here with everyone with this.
Thanks, Edwin. I feel fully heard.
Okay, I'm just going to check. Grace, would you like to try a hand at this? If I could just say something short, and then you could just speak to someone. So.
Yeah, hi Edwin, thanks. Thanks for that invitation. I'm okay just listening and observing. Thank you.
Okay, just I check. Okay, then I'll speak to Michael. No, I spoke to Michael last time, I think, didn't I? Can't remember. I think I've spoken to James. I don't know. I'll speak to James. What the heck? So, oh, yeah, I just realized it's you and I doing the typing. So when we speak to each other, no typing gets done. So I appreciate your note-taking, which is amazing.
You appreciate my note-taking, and you're noticing that if you talk to me, then there won't be any note-taking.
Yeah, I was avoiding talking to you because I wanted to be typing notes. Yeah, I appreciate, I think Carolina is looking at what are some like specific, simple things we can do. And I kind of have that viewpoint too. I see that something in Berkeley, empathic direct action in Berkeley, where there's a, what they call, the BART station, the subway station, and there's a plaza there. And there's 16,000 people go through that station because it's the main subway station to the University of Berkeley. So a lot of students go there. It's right downtown. I just kind of am envisioning that as a good spot for an empathic direct action.
You're getting into the specifics about a specific spot near the BART exit in downtown Berkeley for direct action to take place.
Yeah, and I think the point is 16,000 people go through that station. So that's a lot of people during the day.
16,000 people a day, a good place because there's so many people. It's going through there.
And they've set up a bunch of tables there too. They already have maybe like 20 tables with chairs around it. So they've already like set it up for a cafe outdoors, so and then it's near the city hall. So that you can make a point about getting the officials, to take part. And there happens to be a Chase Bank right there. So it's like it hits all the points, you know. So it can really, yeah, it's just, yeah.
The fact that there are tables and chairs already set up and that it's near Chase Bank makes it a prime location for what you want to do.
The only problem is they're building a hotel across the street, and they've been doing a lot of construction. So they have like jackhammers going. And if that kind of stuff is happening, Bill and I set up the tent there once. And I've set up there years ago, a whole bunch. And I love the location, but when they're doing construction, it's like you can't hear yourself think. So that's the one drawback.
Drawback, it's gonna be too loud if there are jackhammers in construction going on to do empathy.
Yeah, so I'm trying to still work. Like, I really appreciate this connection I made with the Direct Action XR group yesterday. And so that's where I'm kind of like steering, you know, sort of envisioning a setting up there. And I could even imagine doing an occupation of the plaza where you stay several days, and then you can do the whole festival, you know, thing if you're like doing sort of an Occupy Empathy kind of a event.
Sorry, I think I missed that. Could you help me with that?
It was, yeah, I've been, you know, talking with the XR local group that, so I'm just seeing if I can just imagine sort of seeing if they would be interested in something like this, you know, doing
okay.
an action there.
So you're in conversation with the local XR group, and you want to, specifically if they would want to do an action in that spot.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about the coronavirus, that if this takes off, that's going to really inhibit people getting together. So I wonder, yeah, so, you know, any kind of mass actions that might really dampen it if it starts coming to the Bay Area.
Coronavirus is a concern for mass gatherings, that if that spreads or starts to spread in the Bay Area.
So that's just my brain kind of going, you know, kind of thinking about the possibilities and you know, just how to set all that up. So yeah, that's I guess there's also sort of documenting all this and being able to convince people, you know, to take part. And we have so much material now, you know, online, so many circles. Just did an empathy circle with some of the co-founders, Rupert Reed and Shakina, that we posted. If we can do a circle with Roger Hallam, that really helps kind of build the case. I just see that there's sort of a momentum's kind of building for this. So yeah, that's it.
You're still in the brainstorming process, and you want to kind of make sure that you have the sufficient documentation that can kind of be passed along so people know what to do. And you're already partially doing that with the meeting with the XR leaders, and you also want to do the same with Roger Hallam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay. Carolina, would you please listen?
Yes, I'm listening.
All right. So, one of the agreements that we have in a different empathy circle that I participate in is we agree to explore our feelings in the group and not act on them. And so I am being a participant of this group where there are different agreements or different assumptions. I'm trying to wrap my head around what the consequences of that difference is, because so much of my understanding of what empathy work is about exploring our feelings together, exploring our feelings and thoughts together, and this topic of the direct action somehow, in some way, seems to fly in the face of that purpose for me.
Well, I might have problems with reflecting that, but I will try anyway. So first of all, you referring to two different types of circles. In one of them, I'm not sure, I probably don't understand that. You meant that we agreed explore our feelings, not to act on them. I'm not sure what act on them means, but you use that word.
Yes, that's right. There's a group that I'm in that's nobody else here is in, where we have an agreement to explore our feelings and not to act on our feelings. And
Okay.
so I can see that you don't understand,
Yeah.
and that's okay, because I haven't said anything about what that difference looks like. So
Yeah,
it's an important distinction, but I'm also curious exactly what that difference is between exploring our feelings and taking action.
So you want to kind of explore different situation when there is no such agreement, as I understand, when we explore our feelings but also act with them. That's what you mean?
No, I don't think so. To give an example.
To be honest, I don't understand the word act on feelings. I don't understand what it means.
Yes.
I understand every word, but kind of can't get the meaning of this.
Yes, that's what, so I'm trying to think of, so it's an example would be, in a personal situation, an example would be, I have plans to go to dinner with my wife, but we had a fight yesterday, and I'm very upset about the fact that we had a fight. And so if I were to act on feeling upset, I might cancel plans. That would be the action.
Okay, so you mean according to the feelings, sort of. In agreement with feelings.
No, it's just that I'm just making a distinction between having a feeling, like I could just be upset and continue to go to dinner with my wife, or I could take actions. I could cancel plans, or I could call her a bitch, or there's different things I could do to act on my feeling upset.
Okay, so you're referring to the situation when we have some certain feelings, but we behave like we don't actually have them. But we can also act on those feelings, behaving like they impact us somehow.
No. I don't I don't know. No, I think that they impact us either way. We are impacted by having feelings, but we don't necessarily have to act on them. And so I have an understanding that when I'm not connected to my feelings, when I'm not connected to feeling lonely, or if I'm not connected to feeling angry, then I tend to do things and not even know why I do those things.
Okay, so you think that if we are not connected to our feelings and we not act on them, we behave in a way that is not, we unconsciously actually react to them, and we just don't realize that, and we can't explain our behavior. We don't understand why we are doing what we are doing.
Yes. Yes. Okay, it's my time. Thank you.
Well, maybe you want to add something, because I kind of take your time by not understanding the words.
Yes, but that's part of it, I think, what we do here, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have time for another round?
I think one more.
Okay, so
we have
I would
43, yeah.
So I would try to speak to Michael. Michael, can you reflect me back?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let me return to my listening post.
Okay.
It's too bad you don't have a camera. I'd love to see the visual.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I am ready.
I'm thinking about different visions. Well, actually, it was interesting reflection what James said about acting on emotion, on feelings. I have to think about it more. That was interesting.
You're going to think about more what the full meaning of that is if you act on feelings, or what your thoughts are on that concept.
Yeah, and I'm curious how it, I'm sorry that we didn't get to the point we could talk about circles and how it refers to circles, empathic circles.
So there's a lot more as it relates to the dynamic of a circle that you want to explore and you're curious about.
Yeah, yeah. But coming back to empathic direct action, I was thinking about different visions, and I think that if we would meet somewhere in the globe, in one place, and we could try to all the ideas we have, different ideas we can continue our, so to speak, festival for a few days, but we can organize one massive action on one day and other actions on other days. And we can mix those few different ideas and visions together, and join them together and mix them. And I think it might work really great. We might be an island of empathy among Rebellion Week.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you were thinking that if you had a series of smaller meetings or gatherings, you could make a collage of everyone's vision of what an empathy island in the midst of a city would be like, and then you could pull it off, and you could have a really large empathy disruption to a city's hustle and bustle, and
Yeah,
that could be really wonderful.
yeah, that's how I see it. Thank you. I feel heard. Thank you.
Well, thank you as well. Very good.
I think we have time for you to go, Michael, if you want to do like 5 minutes. That'll be the last one.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. I guess, yeah, if you'd like to listen, I'm happy.
Okay. Listening.
Yeah, I think it was really exciting for me now to have all these ideas and visions of what empathy could look like on a small scale, on a large scale, in a group dynamic. I think it's been really generative for my imagination, and it feels really lovely to think about.
So you're feeling some real excitement about these different visions for sort of empathic events, and it's kind of felt generative and just really enjoying that.
Yeah, and I think there were some really good points brought up about the dangers of an empathy circle or an empathy planned event if you don't take in all the vast array of experiences that people have in society, and if you don't properly prepare, things could go wrong. But if you do prepare well, you could have a really incredible experience.
So really seeing just seeing that preparation is key for having a good experience, to bring in everyone's thinking of everyone.
Yeah, thinking of all their needs and ways to keep them safe. Yeah, keep people safe and make people feel confident in setting their own boundaries and how they can participate and make them feel like the author of their own experience. That's a really cool idea, because so many events you go to in larger society are sort of planned for you, and you're kind of an audience member. Whereas a well-planned empathic event, you could be like the initiator, and then you could also withdraw as you needed or have boundaries as you needed, which is kind of rare in large gatherings.
So you're seeing that large gatherings are usually very choreographed and planned, and you're imagining like an empathic one where you're sort of really more creative, the author of your own actions, and that you're able to take part and be able to withdraw as needed.
Yeah, and I think about the visions in the forest of these actions, or in a nature or park space, and then also like the street space and sort of interrupting the the automated flow of the city, and what that could, both of those could really feed people like a good vibe and a good energy. And even if people didn't understand what was going on and they were a passerby, you could gift someone like a really good energetic field, or a good example of what humans can be to each other.
So seeing that an event could really sort of create a certain energy, even if people who are passerbyers don't really understand it, they would still sense the energy and the sort of the positive energy between people. And it could be in a park, as well as there's an overall sort of a system kind of moving, and the traffic, etc., and how to sort of maybe disrupt that or something.
Yeah, just give people like an alternative way of looking at interaction. I feel like a lot of our interactions with people, especially like in a large city like where I am, are very strained because you're competing for space, or you're trying to get somewhere, or there's time deadlines. But then I heard this quote a couple of days ago where it was like, the only timing or deadline you have to worry about is how much effort and time you're going to put into relating to other people. They were more poetic when they said it, but basically, if you're worrying about a bill or a piece of legislation or getting somewhere, those timings and deadlines aren't as important as how long it's going to take you to build relationships with your community. Those are the timings that you should focus on, and the rest will like attend to itself.
So really seeing the importance of building relationships with each other. Like relationships can be stressful, and it's good to sort of just work on building, you know, kind of positive relationships, and sort of the details of what needs to be done will sort of take care of themselves.
Yeah, yeah, thank you so much. I feel heard, and big thanks to everyone for your contribution on the call.
Okay, really hearing some gratitude for the call, and yeah. So, okay, well, that was the last one where I thought we might have a bigger group, and with the groups would come together and then sort of report back, but we don't really need to report back since everybody heard everything. We could maybe go around and just share, like, what did you like about the empathy circle? We can use that as a little blurb, you know, I kind of excerpt those. So maybe just share, what did you like about the experience? Kind of in closing. Bill, do you want to?
Edwin, I just want to remind you about the recording. Do you want to like?
Oh, create a separate.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. I can.
Okay. Okay.
What I've been doing is I just go in and excerpt those, the ones that I think are good, and create a little separate clip. What I have been doing is Grace left. Okay.
Okay.
You want to just go around?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So I'll just call. Rowan, would you like to start, please?
So I really liked the sympathy circle because we engaged with each other. Some of the time in the last one that I was in, this is only my second one, and I wondered, you know, whether this format would work. People said things and people were heard, but there was very little follow-on. And I really liked this one because I felt like, in addition to expressing empathy and being heard, we had a dialogue. And I'm very much about dialogue. So thank you all for participating in this very dialogue-rich empathy cafe.
Great, thanks. James?
Yeah, so what I liked about it, I liked that I had an opportunity to speak my ideas and not get shut out. And ironically, well, you know, the point that Carolina brought up before, Edwin and Carolina, about how how this style kind of protects introverted people's spaces, that does serve me. I feel that serving me here. And what I was doing was I was trying to, at least as I was listening, to find the connections between what people were saying, as a way of seeing the dialogue that is building and that we're creating together. Because like Rowan, I get frustrated when the kind of siloed empathy circle just is one person after another sharing things, and we don't see the connections, or we don't see the building. So I've been trying to work within this system to do that, to notice and also bring that to the attention of us, where the connections and the threads are that we're building. So I was doing that. I was enjoying being able to do that.
Great, thanks. Okay, Carolina?
I don't have any special feelings about today's empathy circle. I think that we have many threads in a circle, but it was kind of intertwined, and actually the dialogue was kind of continued. Yeah, I like when it's happening, when there is a thread that is continued in everybody's speech. I like such situation, this feeling of continuity, but also when it's changing and kind of new threads appeared and are developed, and we coming back to the former ideas and we go forward. Yeah, it's kind of natural dynamics which I like very much. Thank you.
Great. Michael?
I will unmute Michael. Okay. Michael, can you speak?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, there's a bit of a delay there. But yeah, I really thought it was a great first experience for me. I thought everyone had really good insight, and that it's good to keep the conversations going. And I'll leave it there. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us, Michael. It's fun to have you. Okay. I just enjoyed, all the expressions, and I also appreciated James for, being brave enough to talk about a difference. I think that's kind of like the canary in the coal mine of all these kind of movements. If somebody disagrees, can we deal with it in a constructive way? And I like the way the circle responded to James, and I also felt that James was listening, especially me, excellently, and showing really great skills, which I appreciate. Edwin?
Okay, so my mind has suddenly gone blank. I had something I wanted to say. I think I'm getting older, and then the ideas just go and just kind of waiting for something sort of emerge. It was about that. I see the empathy circle as sort of a foundational platform, and that each component is, you can be changed, right? Because we've got 5-minute turns, you can have 3-minute turns, you can have 10-minute turns, you can have no turns at all. So that could, so these different factors can be changed. So I want to keep, it open to innovation. And so I appreciate everyone's, sort of ideas about that. How do we get more into the felt experience? I think that's a deeper level. Like, is there something in terms of innovation that when you start speaking, you share a feeling, just name it, like excitement. I feel excitement, and then the next person just reflects that feeling and maybe makes a guess about what the person is feeling. So there's just a lot of things that can be added, but I think this core foundational skill is just really good to have as a sort of a baseline. So maybe in designing, the empathy circles, we can create other sort of aspects to it, keep innovating around that. So so with that, I thought we would maybe go over, but it was a smaller group, so we really don't need to. We have our empathy circle on Friday with on conflict at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then we have the facilitator support group at 12:30 Pacific. So everyone here is welcome to take part. Next week at this time slot, we'll be talking about XR and the vision. It's sort of building on the empathy circle I did with the authors of that XR Vision and Story 2020. So I want to kind of build on that. So, and then we'll be doing this in 2 weeks. We'll be doing this same topic here again. I think that's about it. So anything else in closing? I know, an activity is, I've done in other circles, and maybe you'd like to be willing to try it, in terms of getting into our felt experience, is like taking a feeling that you have in the moment and turning it into a physical motion, and then everyone mirrors it. So maybe in closing, we could try that if you feel comfortable. So my feeling is sort of this, we just kind of, if you feel comfortable sort of mirroring it. It looks really good for the video too. For photos, I take screenshots of it and it looks pretty cool. And maybe we can go around. Bill, do you have a feeling that you're feeling in the moment? James, you got to wait till you got to be satisfied that you were heard. Like that looks like a wimpy thumbs up. Did you feel
it's
heard?
True. No, I was totally,
Did you feel
totally
heard,
did not
Bill?
mirror that. I can own up to that, not mirroring that at all.
Did you feel heard, Bill?
Yeah, that's fun.
Okay, good. Okay, Rowan, do you got one?
So this is jazz hands, but it's also applause in ASL. And so I applaud all of you. And I can't slap my hands together, so that I can't do that kind of applause.
Okay, thank you. Carolina? And Michael, since we can't see you, can you, I'll unmute you and you can just make a sound and we'll mirror your sound.
The sound of silence.
Are you there? Maybe he's in his job, so he can't make the sound. So, okay, well, maybe next time, Michael, hopefully you can join us Friday and we'll maybe try it again at the end. So, okay, then we'll see you, hope to see you Friday. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a